Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's Alaska Weather Edition. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Up first on the breakup map here, I can see the Yukon, of course, is open for quite a distance down here, almost down, or I'm sorry, the Yukon through here, Tanana, of course, down here to where the meets AKwx, and then from there it's mostly open, and then some open over the Yukon Delta. Also up here, the Kobuk River also has some open areas now, progressing farther downstream, and the the Noatak River up there has on the lower portion some open, but still pretty well iced up upstream. So probably won't be any problems with that breakup, and everything continues to do a slow dissolve here, even up the Porcupine River, and still waiting for the Colville River and Sagwan Rivers to begin the breakup process. There is warmer air spreading up over the North Slope now, and probably will for the next day or so. So we may begin to see something showing up there later next week. And for the fire danger, a little bit of a change. This area over the Yukon, upper Yukon Valley, that expanded, got a little bigger, while the area that was over the, just north of the Alaska Range here, kind of shrunk and split into two. Lost the wind, so that's one reason, not as high a fire danger there. And a few showers moving through as well. Otherwise, everywhere else, virtually non-existent as far as fire danger goes. And for satellite imagery, a lot of clouds spreading up, especially southern Alaska here. One system moving into the southeast coast, and weakly into the North Gulf Coast. This system pulling moisture back into Kodiak Island and bringing rain there in the southern Kenai Peninsula up into western Prince William Sound, where reportage picked up about ½ an inch during the day today. Otherwise, southeast coast with that trough had roughly 1 to 2/10 of an inch, and real light amounts, just isolated scattered shower conditions here with the clouds moving into the southeast interior. This batch breaking off, could be some isolated showers in through here. Otherwise, northwest looked like some clearing. Seward Peninsula, eastern Seward Peninsula, there was some clearing. There was moisture from Shishmaref into the Bering Strait with that narrow band of clouds here. Extends down to the Yukon Delta with some shower activity. And then rain much of the afternoon occurring at the St. Paul Airport there, the observing site. And a break there over the Aleutians. Winds pretty light out there at Adak and Atka. Isolated showers from Atka, and then a few showers around the Fox Islands, as well as the Alaska Peninsula with rain just off to your southeast. And you can see the outer cloud shield associated with that next incoming front. Really not moving all that fast, but eventually will be pushing into the western Bering, southwest Bering, western Aleutians, and pushing eastward tomorrow toward the central Aleutians. And for the rolling that once again, you can see low pressure down here south of Kodiak Island, and a pretty good front here, massive moisture again rolling right on up. That's going to increase the wind and rain later tonight and tomorrow. For the Panhandle, North Gulf Coast back into Kodiak Island, rain fell today. 1 to 2/10 of an inch again with that trough over the southeast coast. Definitely brought cooler temperatures in. Much cooler, mostly in the 50s here across the entire area there. But lighter rainfall amounts on the North Gulf Coast is 3/100 of an inch today at Cordova. Yakutat picked up about 1/10 of an inch. And otherwise, Kodiak, ½ inch, same as Portage Glacier, with the 2/3 of an inch, or almost 7/10 of an inch falling on the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula areas. Lighter back out to the west here, but there was some heavier rainfall amounts, but not all that much. As a Mountain Village picked up about ½ an inch today. Otherwise, other amounts were lighter. and just isolated showers out here over the eastern Aleutian areas to the up to the Pribilofs, where it was mostly rain. Otherwise, winds central interior 15 to 25 miles an hour in areas, especially the higher elevations. Pribilof, St. Paul had gusts to 30, 35 miles an hour this afternoon. And the forecast for tonight, again, that trough dissipates. Here's the next system bringing more rain and an increase in the winds here along the southeast coast late tonight, especially tomorrow. Less of a wind increase back to the west here, but rain continues Kodiak Island, and will increase again along the North Gulf Coast, spreading in toward Prince William Sound and westward again late tonight and toward morning. Showers, Cook Inlet, mostly western Cook Inlet to the Alaska Range, and another batch of moisture slips on up in across the Alaska Range now, and could be an area of rain into the 40-mile country upper and mid-Tanana Valley, with showers back to the east-northeast and south-southwest. A break right through here. Otherwise, low clouds, fog, flurries for the North Slope Arctic coast. Not too bad, relatively dry with just isolated shower activity over the western areas here. Bulk of the showers now slipping on down with those winds, possibly gusting 35, maybe 40 miles an hour here across the Alaska Peninsula tonight, and the eastern Aleutians beginning to diminish late. High pressure, light winds, areas of low clouds and fog, central Aleutians. Rain trying to push into Shemya will definitely push in there tomorrow morning and spread eastward to Adak late in the afternoon, and probably small craft advisory winds with that feature, but light winds for Atka and Adak and diminishing winds for the Fox Islands. Pribilofs could see some sun in those areas as well, and maybe even up to St. Lawrence Island. A little breezy here north, 15 to 30 miles an hour, all the way down across the Alaska Peninsula. Mostly cloudy, showers, about sums it up here for southern interior Alaska back into Bristol Bay, and wet weather tomorrow, rain, maybe moderate to possibly heavy at times along the southeast coast. Back to the west, another wet day for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, into definitely Portage and likely as far west as Girdwood. And then it could be dry for Cook Inlet, probably be dry Anchorage, Palmer, and much of Cook Inlet into the Matanuska-Susitna Valley, with just isolated showers now up over the eastern interior. Light snow up on the North Slope areas. And pushing ahead to Tuesday, not Wednesday yet, Tuesday here, look for some light rain over the northern panhandle with isolated showers down to the south. Probably a dry day, possibly for Prince of Wales Island, Annette, Ketchikan, those areas with high pressure over the Queen Charlottes. Otherwise, this system really not much of a threat. Look for a dry day now, finally, for Kodiak Island. Maybe some sunshine as well with light winds, hopefully. Definitely dry, a little iffy on the sunshine, but scattered isolated showers, more isolated here, North Gulf Coast, Copper River Basin, and another area of rain up over the eastern interior there, with showers back to the west, cutting off here out toward the Seward Peninsula, dry along the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and that weakening front pushes rain, but no significant winds into the Fox Islands, and that's light rain and fog on up to the Pribilofs. Windier conditions back with the main low hanging back toward the western Aleutians, with showers in between. And for the lows tonight, teens to lower 20s, North Slope Arctic Coast, upper 20s for the Brooks Range, mid-40s for the interior, lower to mid-40s southern Alaska, mid-30s out along the coast, mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians, and 45 to 50 for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow stuck in the mid-50s there for the southeast coast, or lower to mid-50s, pushing up towards 70 again tomorrow, like you saw today up there, with 70 at Eagle, and also lower to mid-60s elsewhere, 65 McGrath, upper 20s for the Arctic coast. Lows the following morning, lower to mid-20s, staying above that 20-degree mark there, with lower or 40s here through the central interior, near 40 along the coast, mid to upper 40s for the southeast coast, near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula out on to the Aleutians. And then the highs for the next day, 60s here, lower 60s now, a little bit of cooling, still in the 50s for the Panhandle. And look for the Susitna Valley. Talkeetna could push up towards 61 or 2 degrees. Same thing for Willow, Big Lake, into the Matanuska Valley. Otherwise 50s for the remainder of the area. Low 60s all the way down to Bethel now. Upper 20s to lower 30s there from the North Slope and Arctic coast, to lower 60s in the Brooks Range.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
IFR here, Nunivak Island on down to the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR Nikolsky, right on up here to Kodiak, IFR east side of Kodiak there across the Gulf of Alaska to Yakutat. A lot of VFR starting out the day tomorrow over the interior, but north of the Alaska, or north of the Brooks Range, western north slope on out to Point Lay, IFR. And IFR north of the western Aleutians, marginal VFR for the Panhandle. And in the afternoon, that holds right through the afternoon there, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound as well, into areas of southeast and south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, marginal. VFR more widespread out here in the west than in the east there, but marginal VFR, Koyukuk Valley up across North Slope in the Arctic coast, and IFR out over the Bering Sea. That moves eastward for the morning on Tuesday there, but stays west of the Pribilofs. This area stays to the east. Narrow band Bering Strait down to the Yukon Delta coast. VFR from northern Bristol Bay up across western interior until you approach the Brooks Range there, but VFR eastward into the upper Yukon Valley. And much of the Tanana Valley 40-mile country, or the Alaska Peninsula marginal, Copper River Basin marginal, Kodiak marginal, and the Panhandle marginal, IFR North Slope eastern Arctic coast. And that IFR gets even more expansive up there over the North Slope and Arctic coast, down through the Bering Strait in the afternoon on Tuesday, with widespread IFR over the eastern and northern Bering Sea, right down to the Alaska Peninsula and across down Alaska Island. And IFR expands rapidly here over the Gulf of Alaska, coming right up to southern Prince William Sound, stays marginal over the Panhandle, and more IFR pushing on into the far western and southwest Bering Sea and western Aleutians. Anaktuvik and Adigan will be occasionally marginal throughout the day tomorrow. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal as well with rainy, same forecast, marginal VFR at times. Windy though, optimistically VFR for the entire day. Isabel, occasionally marginal. And Mentasta starts out marginal and could possibly become VFR into the afternoon. And for Tanita, marginal VFR possible, eastern approach, otherwise VFR. And for Portage, IFR still possible on that eastern entrance, otherwise marginal. And Chilkoot and White, mostly marginal throughout the entire day Monday. And for freezing levels, southeast coast here, 4,000 to 6,000 feet. Pretty uniform here across southern Alaska, the Gulf here. 6,000 feet north and eastern interior areas, with kind of a cold pool pushing down to the Fox Islands there, and then warming up to 8,000 to 10,000 feet over the western Aleutians. And icing above about 9,000 feet with those higher freezing levels, areas of isolated moderate rime icing in that zone, and mixed icing along this boundary right through here. Mixed icing light to isolated moderate above about 5,000 feet. All these zones here. Could be some widespread moderate with the moisture up to the North Gulf Coast into the Panhandle tomorrow. Otherwise, isolated moderate back to Kenai Peninsula to roughly Kodiak Island. Jet stream, upper level low here into the Gulf of Alaska. Pretty wavy pattern here. High pressure actually weakening over northwest Canada. And southerlies, 130 knots, diminishing to 90 knots there north of Skagway, but that's going to pull that moisture right on up into the southeast coast as that front approaches. Good northwest jet here behind that, sailing southeastward 120 up to 150 knots across the eastern Aleutians, Narrow Ridge, and another trough toward Kamchatka. 9,000 feet northeast, 25 Alaska Peninsula's highs, 50 knots there over the Fox Islands, 15 to 25 northern interior, switching around to the south up to 45 western Aleutians, and strong winds here, 50 to 55 along and off the coast of the Panhandle. 3,000 feet, 35 to 45 along and off the coast there, wrapping back around Kodiak at about 25, and 5 to 15 over much of the interior, picking up to 25 knots here, to 35 knots on the eastern Arctic coast. Northerlies, 35 across the eastern Aleutians, and up to 40 out there to the west, with turbulence looking like this. Occasional moderate chop here. Western Aleutians, break here as that ridge shifts eastward there into the central Aleutians, And then those northwest winds along and south of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, moderate chop below 5,000 feet up to Kodiak Island and the eastern Arctic coast.
They're called hooligan candlefish, cigarfish. They're a really, really oily fish. They're a little on the mushy side, so we like to fry them. And we decided to go upriver, about maybe half mile upriver, and fish off the bank there. For me, one of the nice things about the fish is actually that there's a lot of other populations other than like the local Athabascans and Alaskan Native people that go down there and take advantage of it. There's a lot of Pacific Island people, a lot of Korean people, a lot of other Asian folks out there. They all love these little fish, and they all go out there every year and catch them, bring them home. I think people really just enjoy getting their own food. Obviously, we don't have to. We could just go to the store, but it's kind of like the principle, you know, you go out there and you're going out there with your family and your friends, and you're, you know, getting food. I take my family out. That's the way I grew up. I grew up in Nome. We spent a lot of our winter and definitely all of our summer subsistence hunting and fishing. And for me, I don't know, I just feel like it was a great way to grow up, and it's really foreign to me when people don't have those experiences. And so I really, really wanted my kids to, you know, have that experience and to know where their food comes from. You know, I don't want them just to think that all their fish comes from the grocery store or comes packaged in little packages of meat. Like, I want them to know that it comes from other beings that live on this earth, and, you know, for them to have some respect for that. There's a lot of other distractions, like my oldest son really, really likes Angry Birds a lot, way too much. I want him to learn to enjoy being outside and learning to enjoy harvesting your own food. When I was growing up, actually, my mom, she gets amazed by this, but she literally would wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, and go out and play, and she would have no clue where we were or what we were doing until lunchtime. Then we'd come back hungry, eat, and then go back outside and play again until it was night. I don't know, maybe if the world's changed or just because she's gotten older or whatever, but now with my kids, like, she can't even let them out of her sight. I started working in canneries. I started working on the docks for a little bit, ended up on a tender, went over to Bristol Bay, so I spent some time commercial fishing. Then I actually traveled around the United States as a pitch salesman for a little bit. Like the dude who sells the ShamWow, kind of like the commercials that you see on TV where everything's $29.95, $19.95, $9.95. I would do that live starting at the Alaska State Fair. I stopped being a pitch salesman. I went to my brother's Marine Corps graduation, my younger brother, and when I was watching that, I decided that was something that I would like to do. And then went back home to Alaska and then joined the Marine Corps from Alaska. Well, we were scouts. Our job was to be on the ground. And so our job was anything that had to do on the ground. We were forward recon. We'd clear houses and stuff like that. Every time that we stopped, we'd do a sweep for IEDs, improvised explosive devices. I'm sure everybody knows what those are by now. Even when I was growing up, my mom said that after I got done with high school, I was going to go to college, and I wasn't going to college for me. You know, she said that, you need to go to college so you can learn, and then you can come back, and then you can, serve your people, basically. I guess that just was part of the way that we were raised. I mean, even when we were out fishing, I wasn't just fishing for myself. I was actually fishing for friends and family as well. And it's not a burden or anything. I'm happy to do it. And the Marine Corps wasn't a burden either. It was kind of a pain at times, but I really feel like maybe part of the reason why I try to do the subsistence stuff so much is because the education that I want to get now is my UPIC education, Even though I did grow up subsistence and stuff like that, we moved away right around the time that I would have been going out and starting to do things like seal hunting and going on the big hunting trips and stuff like that. So I never actually got to do that kind of stuff. So I'm starting to learn it all now, and I'd like to go home and I'd like to learn the Yupik language. I know some, I don't know enough, and I'd like to learn more, about how we do things. My Yupik name is Mavap. How we name is that when you're born, whoever has died around the time that you're born, you get their name. You know, so I got my name was from my great grandma, Mamie Seaton. Her name was Mara. I don't know what it means. I asked one of my uncles about it, and he just told me that the name was one of those, it was an old name, so they didn't actually know what it meant anymore. And so I think about that, about how far back that name goes. You know, if it's thousands of years, if it's 5,000 years, 6,000 years, how far back that name goes. And so it's just, it's a really tangible connection with my past and history, and it helps ground me to know where I come from, and that I literally am standing here because of all the people that came before me on this entire planet. I think that we've become really arrogant and really disconnected from not only just like the earth, and I also hate how cheesy that sounds now. Like, people have made it cheesy to where I sound like some sort of hippie when I say the connection to the earth, but hey, that's legit. I mean, we are part of the earth.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot different from yesterday, very similar, although the ice edge back here pushing westward a little bit there, and not much change in through here. Continued easterly winds for the next 2 or 3 days, so some of this may push westward as well as this ice edge continues to try to push back to the west as well, but it won't be anything drastic, and this will probably continue to slowly melt over the next 4 or 5 days. For the southeast coast, quite windy tomorrow. Got gale warnings out. South 30-35 knots on the south coast. These up to 13 feet. Southeast 35 on the north coast to as high as 40 knots in the extreme eastern North Gulf Coast. Small craft advisories over the central and northern inside channels with 25 knot winds. Gales for Clarence Strait, southeast 35 with 10-foot seas. And then for Tuesday, south winds at 20 knots for much of the coastline, southeast 20 to 25 knots up here for the north coast, and lighter winds on tap for the day Tuesday here for the inside water, southeast 15 for Clarence Strait, southerlies at 15 for both Lynn Canal and Stevens Passage, with seas coming down to 3 feet. Prince William Sound, northeast at 20, seas 4 feet. Gales here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast 35 knots, 13-foot seas, east 30 for the western North Gulf Coast. Those seas about 11 feet, northeast 30, 10-foot seas there for the Barren Islands. North 20 for northern Cook Inlet, but small craft advisories with a good 30-knot wind there south of the Forelands, and also for Kamishak Bay with seas 10 to 11 feet. And then for Tuesday, those seas really drop off. Winds come down to 10 knots here from northern Cook Inlet all the way into Kamishak Bay. Seas subside to 2 feet, so a much better day coming up. Northeast 15, Prince William Sound, just 2-foot seas. Small craft advisories for the eastern North Gulf Coast with 8-foot seas. Northeast 20, Barren Islands, and the western part of the North Gulf Zone. And for Kodiak Island, north 25 on the east side here with 9-foot seas. North 30 for Shelikof Strait. Northwest 30, blowing right across the Alaska Peninsula with seas as high as 10 feet on the south side, and Bristol Bay northwest at 20 with seas at 5 feet. And for Tuesday, Alaska Peninsula westerlies 15 to 20 knots, west 15 for Bristol Bay, northwest 15 from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and now just 20-knot winds on the east side of Kodiak out of the north, and kind of a light variable wind for Shelikof Strait. Out to the Aleutians for the Fox Islands, tomorrow 20 to 30 knot northwest winds, stronger here, more 25 to 30 across Unalaska Island with seas 8 to 9 feet. And for the central Aleutians, not too bad, 15 to 20 knots out of the west, and then increasing to 30 knots here, small craft advisories for the western zones. And for Tuesday, south to southwest, 25 to 30, small craft advisory southwesterlies here for Adak and Atka with 7 to 9-foot seas, and then the Fox Island winds coming down south to southwest at 20 knots with those seas running 5 to 7 feet. And for the southwest coast, Northwest breeze tomorrow, 25 knots, 6 to 7 foot seas, and north 25 for St. Lawrence Island. So small craft advisories all through this area. A little bit lighter, northwest 20 for the Pribilofs as well as St. Matthew Island. And then for Tuesday, light westerlies at 15 for Norton Sound, north 20 for St. Lawrence Island, northwest 15 here along the southwest coast. Wind swinging around to the southeast in the afternoon, 20 knots for the Pribilofs, east 20 for St. Matthew Island. And brisk wind advisories continue again tomorrow for the central eastern Beaufort Sea coast here with 25 to 30 knot winds, small craft advisories on the west side all the way down to Cape Thompson. Northwest 20, Cape Thompson to the Bering Strait with 5 foot seas. And then for Tuesday, finally lose the brisk wind advisory, a little bit of a decrease going on, east 20, northeast 20, but now we have small craft advisories on the western coast out of the northeast down to Cape Thompson, northwest 20 for southeast Kotzebue Sound. And for tonight again, high pressure out here over the western Bering into the central Aleutians ahead of the next system that's trying to push rain in towards Shemya late tonight, otherwise breezy with showers here from the eastern Bering Sea down across the Alaska Peninsula, and kind of breezy up here through the passes of the Brooks Range as well as along the Arctic coast. Again, brisk wind advisories continuing with fog flurries and low clouds. An area of rain shifting northwestward in across the eastern interior here, upper Tanana Valley, mid Tanana Valley, 40-mile country. Wind and rain push back up toward the North Gulf Coast and Panhandle. It's going to be wet Monday coming up for the southeast coast, one of those rainy days and Mondays along the North Gulf Coast as well. But drying out for Kodiak Island, showers southern Alaska. And then for Tuesday, chance of rain northern southeast coast with a weak trough, isolated to no showers down south. And isolated showers here southeast interior, still some rain chances over the eastern interior. And pretty dry for Kodiak Island, maybe some sunshine. Isolated showers, a very weak system here in the west. Isolated rain and snow showers up along the Arctic coast there. Maybe some sun breaking out in the north slope. This weakening front will bring light rain into the Pribilofs to the eastern Aleutians.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.